Hello, happy Saturday. It's July 18th, 4:37 p.m. And as you can see, I'm having a very lazy Saturday. I know it's been a minute since I've posted, but I wanted to make sure that I was keeping up with these. Um, Today I'm going to talk about detachment. I don't think that I've spoken about this on my channel, so today I'm going to talk about that. Detachment is one of the most valuable lessons I have learned in my entire life. And my understanding of detachment has changed over the years as I have gotten more into self-improvement and gotten more into the law and gotten more into spirituality and just basically just understanding like these disciplines more. My understanding of detachment has changed a lot. So I thought I would share. I think my current understanding of detachment is the best one. And I really hope that you can adopt it because it has really allowed me to become more peaceful in my life. And I hope that it helps you too. Let's say a little bit about what my definition of detachment or what my understanding of detachment used to be in the past. In the past, it was very much a fluff term to me. I think it started off as most of us start off it as is like not caring or like being heartless or being cold or being nonchalant or stuff like that. But as you start really understanding this term, you will realize that it is not that at all. Detachment is not caring. Detachment is not being nonchalant. Detachment is not avoiding. Detachment is not being selfish. It's none of these things. It is actually the most emotionally satisfying thing you'll ever do. And I'll tell you why. Kind of going into how I see detachment now. I was recently listening to a podcast. When I say recently, I mean as early as this afternoon. By this, it's called, I'll link it in the description, but it's called the Kinzer Mind and Body Podcast. I absolutely love this podcast. And one of the episodes that I was listening to was detaching from people. And that's what I'm going to talk about. But you can use this law in any area of your life. You don't have to use it specifically in terms of people. It can be any sort of situation, but I'm going to talk in terms of people because it's the easiest way for me to explain it. In that podcast, he talks about how we think that by attaching ourselves to certain people and expecting certain things from them, our quality of life is going to be different. Or basically, he's saying we think that if we get what we're seeking for from this person, whoever this is, or a certain number of people, our life is going to magically be better or it's going to change. And I don't agree with that. And that's what he's saying in the podcast, is that he doesn't agree with it either. I think detachment is ultimately being so full in what you do and who you are as a person that you automatically don't rely on other people to complete you. The easiest way that he explained this was when you're a kid and you want to play with someone on the playground and you go up to a person, another kid, and you're like, hey, do you want to play together? And this person says, or this kid says yes. And then now you're friends, And then maybe you go up to another kid and you ask the same question and that kid says that they don't want to play with you. Then you're not friends. And he says it's like a very childish way of looking at things, but that's the essence of what detachment is. The only purpose that other people should have in your life, or your relationships should have in your life, is to be fun, to have fun with, to be happy around, and just to enjoy life with. That's the purpose the relationship should have in your life. I'm not talking about your family or your siblings or, specifically family or siblings. I feel that's because you're kind of born into those relationships. So those are, like, in my opinion, kind of harder to navigate. But I'm talking about all the other relationships that you choose, right? Your friendships, your romantic relationships, your spouse, your bosses, stuff like that. Those should be adding to your life. And another thing that he mentions in this podcast, which I fully 100% agree with, is how we're told to, in today's society, we're told to, like, cut someone off when a relationship isn't working. And like he says, I 10% agree with that, but 90% of your relationships don't need to be cut off. You can be fully detached, but still be in contact with somebody. That is very possible. So if someone is, breaking your obvious deal breakers in my case, it's abuse, respect, I don't know, like if it's a romantic relationship, like cheating, stuff like that, like the most, like, obviously, like the crazy, like, deal breakers in my opinion, then yes, I would cut someone off. But in terms of, like, other stuff, like, if it's just like, if you feel like you're giving way too much than the other person is, or if you feel like there's some sort of imbalance in a relationship, and like I said, any type of relationship, you can just stop watering it. You can completely stop watering that relationship. Because, coming back to what I talk about on this channel, which is no one to change but self, if you desire a reciprocal relationship with a friend or with a partner, the only thing that is in your control is not over functioning, is not over giving. Because what happens, it's the basic way life works, is if you push, someone pulls away, So there's an inherent imbalance there. But if you master the art of understanding when to give, how much to give, and when to pull back yourself, not from a place of strategy or games, but genuinely because you just want to see how this person shows up. Because what you are not doing at the moment is, because you're over giving and over functioning, you don't know what this person is like. You know what I'm trying to say? You have an idea of what this person's like based on how you see them, but you have no factual evidence or grounding in reality of how this person actually is. Because if you're always the one initiating, if you're always the one pursuing, if you're always the one initiating the hangouts, whatever, the person automatically becomes comfortable in this dynamic, And then you feel depleted. You feel like you're not, like, like you're being, like, you're over functioning. So, like I said, you don't have to cut it off. You can just stop overwatering the relationship. Like your plants. Like he says in the podcast, like your plants. Every plant needs a certain amount of water, right? If you overwater a plant, it's going to die. If you overwater a relationship, it probably might not die, but it might definitely feel like a burden to you, which is kind of like you're losing yourself in it a little bit. So the best way I can explain detachment in this case is to put yourself at the center of everything you do. The way I look at myself now is I visualize the solar system and I look at myself as the sun. I look at my life as the sun. There is certain areas of my life, which I'm going to read out, that are completely self-focused. Areas of my life that are self-focused. My career, my goals that I have in my career, fashion, health, the way I show up in like taking care of myself, like hair, skin, nails, my finances, decorating my apartment, places to explore or travel, events to attend, then other goals that I have, meeting new people, like taking care of my pet. Like these are things that are completely that I can do, that are in my control, that are not dependent on anything or anyone else, you know? So when I say I see myself as the sun, this is what I mean. By focusing on these areas of my life, I automatically shine. I automatically feel good about myself because, and then the other planets that are revolving around the sun are my relationships. They can only be existing because I give myself the warmth and the light. Because ultimately, no one is going to complete you. The reason I feel that a lot of relationships in today's day and age fail is because we oftentimes see marriage or I'm going to say marriage because this happens more so in romantic relationships than friendships, I'd say. We see marriage as a goal. We see it as this goal that once this goal happens, we're somehow like off the hook in terms of like self-improvement, in terms of, like we feel like once this person comes into our life, we're going to be completely dependent on them. No, that's why they fail. That's why marriages fail like that. Because when you start relying completely on somebody else for your own well-being, that's how resentment grows. That's how contempt grows. And the leading cause of divorces is contempt. It's resentment. And the only way we can avoid this from happening is by always, 100% of the time, focusing on ourselves. Being good for myself, letting my partner be good for themselves, working on myself for myself, letting my partner work on themselves for themselves, working on myself for my partner and our relationship, them working on themselves for themselves, for me and our relationship, and then ultimately coming together from that full cup and then working on the relationship together. That's what I think detachment is. And this can be applied in friendships. It can be applied in any other relationships. But my point is, you cannot expect someone else to complete you. And that's what the law of detachment talks about. It's about, I think that the law of detachment, the more detached you are, the more in love you are. Because love gets, like I've mentioned so many times in my other videos, love is very misunderstood in today's society. Love is freedom. Love is expansive. Love lets the other person be completely who they are and chooses them from that perspective. Attachment controls. Attachment tries to inhibit another person. So when I say detach, I mean when you are detached, you are even more so in love with somebody else. You are even more so in love with who they are. Not who you think they are, but who they actually are. So if you practice detachment in your daily life, and it's a practice, right? Ultimately, it's a practice. It has to be applied every single minute of every day. And if you practice this, you will find that you will fall even more in love with your life, even more in love with the other person, because for the first time you're not choosing out of fear, which is what attachment does. Attachment chooses out of fear. Detachment chooses out of love. Again, Attachment chooses out of fear. Detachment chooses out of love. When you are detached, you can be completely fine without this other person being in your life, but you are choosing them to be in your life. It's kind of like this video I watched once by the Healthy Gamer Gigi. I love his channel too, where he was talking about how the difference between loneliness and solitude is you choosing it. It's the same thing. Why? Because when you're fired from your job, you feel bad about it because something happened that wasn't in your control. Okay? Which is the fear that you have that something might happen that you can't control. But when you quit your job, you feel free. Why? Because both the outcomes are the same. Is you losing a job. Like, if you get fired, you lost your job. If you quit, you're still losing your job. But there's a difference in the way you're feeling is because one thing you did because you chose to, the other thing you did because it just happened to you. It was control. Like, it happened to you, you know? It wasn't in your control. It wasn't your choice. It just happened. It's the same thing with attachment and detachment. Attachment fears, and that's why it latches onto somebody based on that fear. Detachment chooses someone to be with. And then you can also make more informed decisions when you're detached. You can also look down at the facts, you know? And this is coming from someone who used to be extremely emotionally invested in my relationships. I was the one who used to always be like, I wear my heart on the sleeve. But as I listened to that podcast, another thing he said was, people who wear their heart on their sleeve also risk making someone else the emotional center of their lives. And I completely agree about this. Completely agree. That's what I was doing for so many years. I was giving somebody else, be that a friend, be an emotional partner, a romantic partner, complete control on my emotional state. And no one should have that control over me but me. My time, my energy, my emotions, my attention is all reserved for me. And then I can make an informed decision of whether I want to freely give it away to some people in my life or if I want to keep it to myself. They're inherently mine. So it's not about being cold. I can still feel things. I had a big crying session yesterday. But my point is, like, I'm just no longer emotionally over invested in somebody. My mentality now is I'm going to have a good day regardless of how someone or something in my life shows up. Because my happiness is my own. No one can control that. Absolutely nobody. It's my own. I can decide to be happy today. And it's the same with sadness. I can decide to be sad, you know? Sure, things can trigger you, and that's okay. It doesn't mean, like, you completely become, like, this ironclad, like, person who doesn't fucking feel anything. No. Yeah, you get triggered. Your old self shows up. You're just more emotionally regulated now. You know what to do. You know what tools you can use if that happens. You can write, you can go to the gym, you can make yourself a good, nourishing meal. Something that take your mind off it, you know. Distance yourself from the situation by doing something. But yeah, I think that's my new view on detachment is the more detached you are, the more in love you are, the more easy it is to choose people from love and not from fear. So yeah, that was long, but hope that helped. And bye. I'll see you guys soon. Just go out.